How to disrupt your speaker.
Please, if everyone can take their seats now for our first afternoon session. We have the speakers of FIIND, and they're having a session on the topic Faith Impact Project, the journey towards a faith-consistent investment portfolio. And I'll leave it to them.
Thank you so much. It has been quite a journey to get here, and it has been quite a journey to get this presentation started. So we're happy that you have all joined our session. We are not experienced speakers at a large event like the UN, so please bear with us. This was not the easiest start of the presentation, but thanks again for joining us. We promise we have a super interesting, very insightful presentation. We have a speaker also joining us from the UK via live Zoom. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to join immediately from the beginning, but she will add her contribution and she will present her case a little bit later on in the program. So again, very welcome for you to be here. 3 years ago, we started the Faith Impact Project. It's a project from the FIIND Impact Foundation, and we had our first contact with the UN. At that time, I was completely ignorant of the fact how large of an organization the UN actually is. Sophie said, I know some people, I think Will Kennedy at the UN, and I thought, okay, it's maybe 4 or 5 or 100 people, but it's thousands of people, and we have been very happy to connect with Dr. Liat, and thanks again for inviting us here in the Faith Pavilion. Now that we're here, we're extremely excited to present our work at this super important platform, and I think you must have had the same response of people when you told them that you're going to fly to Dubai first to a climate convention to avoid more emissions, to avoid more climate change. I don't know how you managed to talk your friends into why it was really important, and that was not only for your ego, but for us it's important because we think sometimes it's utterly important to connect in person with people and to make a personal connection, especially with people that can really make a change. So that's how we justified being here. And we have a little bit of content to deliver. I'm going to introduce the speakers. I'm going to introduce slightly the content of our presentation. And we have made a little bit of a change so that Sophia can join us via Zoom link later at the end of the presentation. Can I have the first slide of the presentation? That's a different presentation, but I hope we will be able to have our presentation. You guys make it really a challenge. I can't give their presentation. I really need my presentation. FIIND. Number 5. We've sent it 4 times, I think. PDF, PowerPoint. Otherwise, Sophie, maybe for the audience also to have a bit of change, can you introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, hello. So my name is Sophie Robet. I'm a co-founder of FIIND Impact. And what we really want to do here, I'm very pleased to be here, and thanks for the invitation. Karina?
Hi, is this working? Yes. My name is Karina Sumamoto. I am Impact Change Advisor for FIIND Impact Foundation. I've been working on the Faith Impact Project for since its conception, actually, about 3 years ago, and I'm really excited to be here. Thanks.
Okay, just for the technical team, I can manage one more improvisation, but then it stops. So the content of our presentation is going to be, I'm going to explain a little bit more about the FIIND Impact Foundation. Then the content of our presentation is along 3 important questions that we have tried to answer. One is, how can you align faith values to an investment? How can you use faith values to structure an investment portfolio. Then the second is, what kind of frameworks are there available to actually help you with that task? Because we're very mindful of the fact that most faith-based organizations that are asset owners don't have large members of staff or large departments to help them with the deployment of their capital. And then the third is, how can you actually help to bridge or to close the finance gap to help solve climate change? So those are the three questions that we're going to use to structure the presentation. I see sweat coming out of the technical booth.
We can start with the, maybe the foundation and then...
So maybe a little bit more about the FIIND Impact Foundation. Sophie and myself have started FIIND Impact 3 years ago in the middle of the pandemic. On the one hand, we have a commercial entity, FIIND Impact, with large commercial clients like HSBC, some wealthy families. On the other hand, we have a foundation with which we do grant-funded work. And why do we have a foundation? In the whole impact industry, people still are quite not clear about what is actually impact investing. So we thought it's really important, with Sophie's knowledge, to make sure that there's sufficient capacity building information available for people that want to make that step and to help them on their journey towards impact investing. So that's why we started FIIND Impact Foundation. We've applied for a grant. The grant has been given to us by Porticus organization, from origin a Catholic organization, but they have supported us in doing multi-faith research. Karina is our Islamic faith, Islamic finance specialist, but we've also studied Judaism, we've also studied Islam, we've studied Catholic, Protestantism, and Buddhism for this particular exercise. So we've not focused on one particular faith. Then the Faith Impact Project, in the beginning, because we wanted to help people who are quite often first-time investors, we wanted to make sure that we would direct them towards solutions that are effective. But we are not climate experts. So we have worked together with Project Drawdown. I don't know if you're familiar with them. It's a research institute based in San Francisco, in California. And what they do is they do peer-reviewed research to come up with 100 most effective ways to help solve climate change. One of the issues, of course, is the greenhouse gas emissions. To avoid that, they've tried to give a framework which are the biggest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, and by showing that framework, also try to look for solutions in that way. So we've worked together closely with them, and Sophie and her team have tried to align those, the faith values with SDGs and with climate solutions. Technical team.
It's fine, we can do without. Let's just go without.
Technical team, do we have slides? Okay, perfect.
It's
1 minute?
fine.
Perfect.
It's fine.
Sophie, can you tell us a little bit more about the faith value study that we've done?
So by analyzing all the different religions we've been working off, we actually found out that there are a couple of common values, and these values are very much aligned with the reason why we're here today, with the SDGs and fighting climate change. First value I would like to talk about is stewardship of the planet. We call it also care of God's creation. And all different religions will actually have a similar value. The first, stewardship of the planet. Pope Francis calls for the respect of God's creation and its environmental limits and boundaries. In a Jewish tradition, Baltashrit is about do not destroy. That can be also applied to the planet. The Buddhism consider the interdependency of human being and the shared responsibility of the planet. So on Islam, I would leave Islam values to Karina. So how do we care? How do we align actually our act of the day-to-day? We want to be a supporter of the planet, but also a supporter of making sure of not harming further the planet. So not only reducing emission, but avoiding emission, but also making sure we contribute to a better world. The second common value next to stewardship of planet is human dignity. And when we think about human dignity, is no person has more intrinsic value and dignity than others, regardless of race, gender, religion, socioeconomic status. And this concept, it's actually deeply rooting in, in human rights, in social justice, promotion of just and social injustice. And when we think about this value of human dignity, we really want to make sure that no action should harm this equality and perpetuate the wrongdoing of the past. And we want to uplift everyone. So this second value of human dignity is really key. And the third one, which is for me very, very important also because of the interrelationship with climate, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, is solidarity and compassion for the poor and the vulnerable. So this value is actually a core of every single religion. And when we look at the pavilion, they all have support of the poor as a core value. Pope Francis emphasized that every economic action should be judged by its impact on the poor, and no one should be oppressed. And this is really important for every action we have and every investment we do. This is my next point, by looking at the concept of not harming. So the reason why we're here, and I'll give my word in 1 second to Karina, is we do think that we do have a moral obligation to do better. And this obligation does not end the day we actually leave the church, the mosque, the synagogue, or the temple. And we think that we should continue actually our behavior with the day-to-day management of our finance. Karina, maybe.
Karina, can you talk a little bit more about the role of climate in Islamic religion?
Yeah, so this is clear, yeah. Well, like in other religions, there are certain themes within Islamic teaching which investors can turn to when it comes to specifically dealing also with their assets and investments. And we wrote quite extensively about this as part of the Faith Impact Project, but I can maybe give you just 3 short examples. So one of the ones is something that Sophia already mentioned, which is stewardship. And it actually tells us that everything that we own, our assets and the planet that we live on, is a trust from Allah or God. And therefore, we should take care of it. And when we utilize it, we should do it in a responsible, faith-aligned manner that does not harm people or planet and that does not go against divine command. So this brings me to my next example, which is social justice. Now, social justice is one of these values that really pervades throughout Islamic teaching. And it tells Muslims that you have to act justly in all the affairs that you have every day, and also especially take care when you are dealing with the rights of people who are poor or vulnerable or oppressed. And in this sense, when it comes to finance and impact investment, not just impact investment, but Sharia compliant investment, it means that there is a prohibition on usury because it is viewed as potentially exploitative and unjust, where you're actually demanding more than your rights to your capital sums. So you'll find that, if you're a Muslim and you're investing and you want to do it in a Sharia compliant way, that you'll be essentially excluded from investing in conventional debt instruments. So I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on the negative screening side, the exclusion side. Now, on the positive impact side, promoting social justice could mean a lot of things, like, for example, investing into companies that actively contribute towards poverty eradication, which is also climate-induced, by the way. So that's SDG 1. And then perhaps ensuring equal access to clean water and quality health care, which are SDGs 3 and 6. But also importantly, in relation to your climate question, companies that contribute to climate solutions, for example, renewable energy or restore natural ecosystems through SDGs 14 and 15, because climate change is an unjust issue intrinsically, where you have, the poorest and most vulnerable people on earth paying the highest price for something that they barely caused. So maybe that's my second example. I don't know if I have time for a third example. Yeah.
No. But I think this is a good moment to go to the next topic. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yes, that's fine.
So why and how have we focused in the first part of our research more on faith-based organizations? I don't know if you know, but faith-based organizations are estimated to have 6 to 8% of all the global wealth, which is including land, which is an incredible amount of wealth. And why wouldn't they use that wealth to align it better and to help poverty, to help align with solving issues that are actually very close to the values of the faith? To our astonishment, that is not the case. So let's say that 10% maybe is aligned, the other 90% is not aligned. So what we would like to do, after pension funds, after large asset owners, we would like to encourage, so we're not telling them to, there's no obligation, but we would like to invite them to start thinking about, try to align your faith, your investment portfolio to your faith values. Because there's nothing wrong, as Sophie and Karina already mentioned, it should be in alignment with. So that is the next thing that we are going to deep dive a little bit more on. And Sophie is going to explain to you what kind of instruments and what kind of framework we actually use to help people on this particular journey. Because we are aware that faith-based organizations are not having large investment departments. So it's going to be a long-term journey, and we're going to help them along the way. Sophie, what kind of...
Can I have the next slide, please? And actually...
I'm a man, I can only do one thing.
The next slide is actually what we call the spectrum of capital. And the spectrum of capital is a tool, and I'm going to explain to you the main point of that. But it's a tool which is used for you to understand how much of my portfolio, my investment portfolio, is aligned or misaligned with my values, or misaligned or aligned with what I'm trying to do. So if you look at it, you have the left side, which is the traditional investment. This is where actually what originally, the traditional way of managing most of the portfolios. And the traditional investment is all about having a financial return, but actually zero positive or zero taking care of social and environmental impact. And if you want to do good, you're going on the right side, which is the philanthropy, and where you give your money away and you have a very large social impact on environmental impact. But it is really with no return. You could have, yeah. And in between, and this is where the money has been developing over the time, the trends have been developing over the time, the responsible investment are starting, and it's all starting with negative screening, which is the middle line, do not harm. Negative screening is about exclusion, and actually faith-based organizations have started to exclude already in the 70s out of their portfolio, have been able to create a very, very political positive impact by excluding South African shares or company which we are actually doing business with South Africa. And this whole movement have actually led to a political change in South Africa on the end of apartheid. So when we look at what's happening in the climate at the moment with the movement of excluding and excluding the oil and the fossil fuel industry out of the portfolio, we are actually hoping to reach exactly the same amount of political decision. And if you look at moving further to the right, it's all about ESG integration. ESG integration is about making sure that your portfolio, next to not harming, not excluding certain sector, but your portfolio is having a positive impact to society. Positive impact on benefit to society means you are respecting the earth boundaries, you're making sure that people are rightly paid, you're making sure that there is no unrespect or disrespect of human rights. And as an example,
Sophie,
also...
What is the abbreviation ESG standing for? Maybe that
Yeah,
helps.
this is the famous, actually in America you don't want to talk about it, but here maybe we can. It's the famous environmental and social governance factor. And in this factor, you're actually making sure you're not harming. And the way you're doing is about engagement with the companies, engagement voting and proxy voting. So that is what you ask your wealth manager to do for you on your behalf. And then we move to impact investment on the right, which is also a spectrum. And impact investment has two types of impact investment, the financial first and then the impact first. Financial first is actually an impact investment which has the same return as any other investment with a positive and an environmental impact, social and environmental impact next to that. And impact first tend to be more risky, but more impactful, more catalytic, be able to actually build the market to become more impactful. So this free type
Can
of...
you give me an example of the impact you could try to achieve?
Quite often education investment, if you invest in school and you do financing of certain part of education, you're not targeting a market return. You want to build a market, maybe get your money back and reinvest later to support another school. But this is not like you really want to have a strong investment. So that would be one example. But and if we move to the next slide, it's really about thinking, what would be the type of investment which are investable.
Okay. And maybe one slide back. So the impact is also something that you measure like you measure the return of the portfolio.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And is it specifically for one asset class or is it multiple asset classes?
So we can use the spectrum of capital for all the different asset classes. And this is the beauty of that. You can really go to your wealth manager and say, I would like to make sure my portfolio is not only targeting, an ESG, but also a positive impact across all the asset class.
Perfect. And is there also possibility to align your philanthropic objectives with your impact investment objectives?
Yes, quite often the same type of, you can make sure that your impact investing portfolio have the same goal, SDGs, but also the same values, because this is what we were talking about. You have all this investment can have SDGs and alignment also, absolutely.
Because most often faith-based organizations are quite familiar with philanthropy already. Catholic churches have been giving away money, but impact investing is something new for them. But they could also use those same values to do actually more good with their money. Okay, let's move to the third part. And I hope we can really, and maybe someone of the technical staff can confirm that we can really dial in Sophia later on in the presentation. So I would like to have a thumbs up from somewhere. So this is the part where we talk about what is actually effective and what is investable. Because on the one hand, it could be effective to dwell water somewhere to make sure that there's a well, but is that also investable? And that is actually what Sophie and her team have been trying to do alongside the Project Drawdown framework, also identify from those effective solutions, and you will be surprised because, for instance, avoiding food waste is one of the most effective things you can do to help the planet. Educating girls is one of the most effective things you can help to do and to solve climate change. So, but are those themes investable? That is basically the question that we want to try and answer in this part of the presentation.
You can move the 2 slides, actually.
But now also my clicker doesn't work.
It's not working. I think what we're trying to explain is really when you look at these 3 main values, the stewardship of the planet and the poverty and the human dignity, you can really implement them in your portfolio. And implementing them in a portfolio means investing to funding investments which are actually contributing to both. And yes, as Martin just mentioned, climate investment is one of the biggest solutions for contributing to fighting climate change. So renewable energy, and as we all know, there is a bigger need in emerging market than in developed market. But the problem I would like to talk mostly with you today is energy poverty. Energy poverty is actually massive. 700 million individuals on the planet do not have access to energy, to electricity. And the solution for this type of problem is quite often off-grid energy. So access to off-grid electricity, solar panel on households, solar panel on the community, so that you can get them, provide a continuous access of electricity to this family. But the biggest problem I would like to mention, which we can solve with our investment, which are very aligned with our values, is the problem of effective and clean cooking. I don't know if some of you are familiar or some of you are not familiar with the problem of effective and of clean cooking, but there is 2.4 billion of individuals on this planet who do not have access to clean cooking, and they're using solid actually, firewood and solid fuel to cook. And this has a huge impact. So 2.4 billion of people not having this access, but the impact is massive on the health. 3.2 million of individuals are dying every year because of this respiratory air pollution caused by the clean cooking issue, by the dirty cooking they're having in their household. Children are mostly impacted. But women, this is also a big gender issue. Women spend 5 hours a day collecting woods to be able to actually cook. And by doing that, they cannot have access to education, they cannot have access to job, they cannot have access to actually wealth for their family. So this issue, if you think about it, is about costing $3.4 trillion annually. It's been estimated by the World Bank, $3.4 trillion to actually cost to the society in terms of health, in terms of environmental impact, because this black carbon is the second largest emitter after the carbon dioxide. So how can we solve that? And that is the tremendous story. 3.4 trillion of cost. The investment is needed to solve this clean cooking issue is $8 billion. So $8 billion versus 3.4 trillion. This $8 billion represents...
8 billion is less than trillion.
It represents 1% of what the government are spending on making the energy affordable. So there is a logic here. So the role of faith organization in that could be find actually some investment fund, which we have collected and we are going to publish also on our website, free, accessible for all. Find investment opportunity. We actually invest in these companies, and these companies will be actually putting the solar panel, changing the clean cook stove, and being able to solve that issue. This 8 billion, it's all about financing this company and financing their growth in private equity, in private debt. And I always love, I had a wonderful picture for you, but you can't see it, about a solar...
We can prove that we had beautiful pictures.
A solar household company, which actually in emerging market, which have reached almost 20 million of households selling, installing free. I'm done. 300 megawatts of.
But Sophie, so basically, what you say, there are solutions to cook without using fossil fuels in emerging markets.
Yeah, so mostly we're not clean cooking solutions. So sometimes they will be using gas, but the solution is it's about having it clean as a transition, actually, and being able to actually not pollute the air. And this is really massive because of the impact I was mentioning.
And is one of the solutions also using solar energy?
Yes, a lot of them, and they're also interrelated. So when you have the solar access, you would the company you're financing are actually distributing this little off-grid solar panel in the household, and then this can be also linked to the clean cooking fuel.
Okay, so basically what you say is the issue is massive. It's polluting the environment. It's also making sure that the health of people is impacted. the issue is super large in terms of financial, and there is a solution that is actually cost a fraction
Yes.
of what the issue actually
And
is.
they are investable on the private market. They are solving an issue of poverty. They're solving a climate issue, and they are private. And the only thing we faith organization needs to do is to go to their wealth manager and say, I also would like to invest in this type of solution as part of my portfolio. And then you have this positive impact. And actually, I'm talking too much. I'd love to give.
But why is it not happening already? One would
I don't know if a lot of people are able to go back to, or a lot of a faith organization can go back to their wealth manager and say, can we please make sure my portfolio has this poverty and this climate impact? And this is the ability to say and to do. This is what we wanted also to have Sophia talking to us about
So that is
explaining.
basically what you're asking the room. Go back to if you're an asset owner, go back to your asset manager and tell them, please align our presentation or our portfolio to our faith values.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Thank you. Karina,
Yeah,
what would you have to add from an Islamic finance point of view?
So maybe I can just also go back to your question, why is this not happening? You know, it's a little different among faith communities. So for example, if you were here in the talk before, so 2 talks ago, one of the panelists mentioned that when you talk about green or climate change and you talk about Islamic finance, there is a lot of silence, right? There's a lot of things going on about Sharia compliance, of course, but when it comes to green and climate finance, there's kind of a bit of a radio silence. And part of the reason is, I think, because there is not enough products that not only generate a positive impact in terms of climate solutions, but also ones that at the same time meet the faith-based requirements of Muslim investors. So, you know, I'll just name one example. For example, the green sukuk is actually one instrument that's possible for Muslim investors to invest in. You know, a lot of investors have public portfolios there, but it's a little bit problematic because if you go into conventional debt instruments, you're not allowed to invest in that. Now, of course, you can invest into private markets, but you want to diversify a little bit. So this green sukuk, which is essentially a Sharia-compliant green bond, of which the use of proceeds are exclusively going into financing green projects that contribute to climate mitigation and adaptation. This would be a solution, and I don't know how much time I have, but if there's not too much, then
I think what we should try to do is see if the organization can confirm that we can actually have Sophia dialing in. Otherwise, we have all the time in the world, I think.
We have the next panel, I think.
Okay, well, for the time being...
Organization, is it Miriam? Is it possible, can we actually get Sophia to dial in? Okay, so Karina, I would like to try to get Sophia in.
Yeah. So if I can just close on one line then. So I would urge you maybe to look at one case study, which is Indonesia's actually a country that has issued such green sukuk before, and I think they've done quite well. They managed to raise something like $7 billion over the past 5 years, and 30% of their investors are self-identified green investors, and 30% are in Muslim markets. So it's really a good example of sort of how you can unlock capital in markets where faith plays an important role. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Karina. Thank you, Sophie. We would like to switch to Sofia Bartoldi. Sofia is working as Church Commissioner for England. Church Commissioner for England are supporting the Church of England, which is not a Protestant, not a Catholic, but an Anglican organization. They are a large asset owner, and Church Commissioners for England are helping them with investing that portfolio along the faith values of the Anglican Church. Sophia, please come in. Can you please switch to Sophia?
In the meantime, we've done...
What we could do is, because I must say this is quite a lot of hurdles, we could call her and just have her on the phone.
Yeah, but I think what I wanted to say, in the meantime, we have published also a case study on Church of England and their climate commitment on our website. They are one of the leaders, and they also, I don't want to speak for them in the case Sophia just
maybe Sophia, otherwise. So the reason why we have connected with Church Commission of England is because we wanted to have some case studies of front runners on our website. Because what we have experienced is that faith organizations love to have peer recommendations. And Church Commission for England is a faith-based organization. For Anglican or Christian organizations, it could be a leading light to also start doing this. So that was one of our reasons to connect with the Church Commissioner for England. We've also connected with Fajr. We've also connected with Buddhist organizations, the Sangha Trust organization, because we wanted to have, for all the 5 religions that we've studied, a case study online that could be seen as a case study for a front runner for that specific faith. So if we are not managing to get Sophia online, please go to the faithimpactproject.org and you will find there potentially linked to your religion a case study that could help in terms of being a guiding light for your organization. I see some disappointment on some faces, so I guess we can't call Sophia in. Just a question, would it be possible to get her via phone, or shall we just ask the audience for some questions?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, let's... So, apologies, Sophia. I can give you the microphone.
As you know, thank you very much. It was a really interesting initiative. As you know, all the faith-based organizations have, especially in the Catholic, Christian, Muslim, there's a lot of land, and there's a drive to decarbonize churches and mosques. What is it that you would recommend in terms of the framing that it could be done in terms of how to use the land so that it can be transformative? So there are many organizations that have said there is a lot to do in terms of investment in this drive to decarbonize churches and make them more ecologically friendly. Yeah.
Thank you. It's an excellent question. From which organization are you?
The Laudato Si Research Institute.
Thank you.
I
It's
was thinking
wonderful.
about sending them to you, actually, as one on the answer.
And I can also recommend you reading the Laudato Si and also Mensuram Barnum, deeply spiritual documents. What I would like to answer is that the Sangha Trust, a connection that we've been introduced to via Faith Invest, is a perfect example. It's a smaller organization in the UK. What they are doing is help using some of the additional assets they have to make sure that the new to be built building that they need for their organization is completely environmentally sustainable. So, but what they do is actually they invest their money into a new sustainable building, environmentally friendly building, and in that way they kill basically 2 birds with 1 stone. So that would be one example. So it's, as you mentioned, extremely important, large asset owners. Another thing is the real assets that they own, land, and to make sure that biodiversity, but also because real assets are an important capture of CO2, which Project Drawdown has shown. Just making sure that those real assets are maintained in the best possible way, which is quite often using indigenous people to maintain the land, is actually also an extremely large contribution to help fight climate change.
Yeah, nothing to add. I think carbon sequestration by a natural way with natural-based solution is really important and building in the same way. But I think the Laudato Si platform is having a lot of engagement on that, and which we are very...
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the last question, because I think we're running out of time, but...
Hi, everyone. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, thank you. I know we are exhausted. So my name is Shalene. I work for a community-based organization known as Siaya Muungano Network in Kenya. And part of the work that we do is to support rural women to be climate resilient. And first, I'm excited about the Faith Pavilion. We were with him in another meeting, and then he told me about this, and I said I have to come because it's. I didn't imagine that we could have this, and just to learn that you're having faith-consistent investing is something so great because. As people of faith, it has always been challenging on how best are we able to address climate change, but not losing the faith in it. So this is really good. And I'm excited about the work that we are doing here, and I have been learning a lot. So from the work that we have been doing, I'm a little bit concerned, especially on us tackling climate and climate change-induced poverty, especially on the clean cooking solutions that we are talking about, because it is something that we have really tried personally from a personal experience with my mother. Naturally, where I come from, we are used to cooking lots of food. Mm-hmm. And when food is cooked and there is no leftover, then that was not enough food. That's our culture. And apparently, when you are talking about the clean cooking, most of the times it doesn't give a provision for larger cooking that is affordable. One of the challenges that we've been experiencing is getting to access clean cooking solutions is challenging to the rural woman, because then most of the times they have to take it on loan. Like you get a service provider, they give you the service, and then you have to keep paying. So when you don't pay, like you have, it's automated such that if you don't pay, then you don't get the service. So I'm concerned and wondering, is there a way that we are able to provide solutions that then do not also inconvenience the grassroots woman? One, solutions like we provide ways in which they're able to access clean cooking solutions that are cost effective, that they do not have to have the burden of having to take a loan to be able to service that engagement, so that then they're able to not see it as a burden, but as something that is workable. But secondly, so that we still maintain our food sovereignty.
I completely agree. Sorry, I'm just going to start answering. I think this is really important. Yeah. And what I mentioned before is, and thanks for the question, thanks very much for the clarification, we're talking about us as a faith organization or as an impact investor. So we want to make sure we do not harm. So whatever solution we're bringing, it's very important to have making sure you do not continuing putting people more in poverty. So the fact, and I mentioned to you the spectrum. So there are solutions. There's a mix. It's a common. It's government who do education awareness of why it could be worth to instead of spending time looking, for instance, for.
But I think. So, but I think the most important thing is you are an experienced expert that could help. If we funnel this kind of information to the organization that is developing this cook stuff, I think that is the most important thing that you actually bring. So you bring experience. It's actually not working for larger meals. So we need to provide the solution for that. So I think if you would like to share your name with us, we can bring you into contact with organizations that are developing the solution, so we can share this feedback with them.
And it's a mix of philanthropy, investment. So if you use philanthropy as a part of government spending, philanthropy or investment, you have a different, depending of on the population you're talking to. Some you don't even have. It's support from the government, for instance. But this is really depends how you finance it, and making sure you don't indebtedness. You make sure it's also about education, because sometimes buying kerosene is more expensive than financing, and this is what we look at: financing the cook stove with a monthly payment, which is smaller than the amount of money you spend on kerosene. So that is the story, as an example. But you are completely right. Yeah, I think we run off the time.
thank you very much for your input. If there are any additional questions, don't hesitate
We're going
to
to stay a
ask,
bit here.
Don't
Yeah.
hesitate to ask them online via the Faith Impact Project. Thank you for the organization for helping us. Thank you all for joining us. And I would say, make sure, if you heard it correctly, all the climate solutions are also helping people quite often that are poor. So you can kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely. Oh, give me 1 second.